Hello everyone and welcome to YouTube channel War and Politics. My name is Sofiia Troshchuk and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest. It's Dr. Yuri Felshtinsky, a Russian-American historian. Dr. Felshtinsky, hello, nice to see you and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So, US President Donald Trump is very disappointed with Vladimir Putin and is giving just 10 more days to agree to a ceasefire or face new economic measures. This new time frame is the latest indication that the US leader's patience is now running out and comes following Trump's recent decision to arm Ukraine by selling American weapons to European countries, Atlantic Council reported. Do you agree?
Well, we know, unfortunately, that Trump is very easy with giving deadlines. We heard about 24 hours to end the war in Ukraine, 24 hours to free hostages in Gaza, then, recently 50 days, which were given to Putin. Now is 10 or 12 or 15 days. I honestly do not believe anything will happen in 10 days, 12 days, and even in 50 days. There were talks about 500% tariffs on countries which are buying Russian oil and gas. We already know that this is not happening. Trump mentioned 100% tariffs on those countries. I do not think that we will see those tariffs introduced. I'm afraid we need to see the action, not the words, because there are a lot of words and some of them contradict, previous statements. And once again, Trump is very easy giving those figures, words, or dates to the public. We have to see the result. The result so far is that American help to Ukraine is not coming. And the idea that Europeans will buy American weapons and send it to Ukraine, it's a very naive idea. It's not going to work. This is not going to happen as well. So Trump is doing this to show to American public that Americans are ready to sell weapons and they just do not want to give it for free. But he knows deep inside, I'm sure, that Europe is not going to buy American weapons for market price. This is impossible. You cannot be involved in a war and have strictly business approach to the issue of buying weapons for a country which is fighting for its independence. It's not going to work. Some countries openly said that it's not going to work, like France, like Italy. Some countries like Germany are trying to help Trump to save his face and to indicate that they will buy some weapons, but it's not going to work. We will see that it's not going to work. And the European governments which will sign under this plan, right, to buy American weapons and ship it to Ukraine, the next elections they will be lost for them. It's wrong economically, it's wrong politically. If Europe has to pay for this war, what is fine, they will invest in their own defense industries. They will not invest in American defense companies.
As Trump's frustration over the war grows, his threats have raised questions about how much leverage the United States has with Moscow and whether Trump is willing to use it. The New York Times reported. Why isn't Trump ready, actually? Is this compromising information about him? He doesn't care about Ukraine. He loves Putin. What version do you have?
Well, he doesn't care about Ukraine. This is true, but it's not because of Ukraine. It's because Trump doesn't care about many things which are not, directly important for him. Uh, it's it's not that he loves Putin, but Putin is going, in his eyes, Putin is a person who is going to ruin Europe. And that's what is needed for Trump so that America would become great again. Because America could become great again only if Europe is weakened or ruined. And the only country which could help him to ruin Europe is Russia, and the only leader is Putin. That's why Trump needs Putin. So that's why he is helping Putin. That's why he is not critical of Putin. That's why he is not going to help Ukraine. And, that's why we will not see any sanctions against Russia because, again, his idea is that Ukraine should capitulate to Putin, so Putin will be able to invade Europe, and Europe should capitulate to United States. Otherwise, United States will allow Putin to invade Europe. So this is the plan, and that's we see so far realization of this plan. But since it's very difficult to Trump to say this openly, we see some other movements or statements which we do not entirely understand, like his tariff policy towards Europe and Canada sounds and looks very strange because we are talking about traditional friends of the United States and traditional partners of the United States. But again, for Trump, the important part is to make America great again. And you could do it only if all other countries are weakened. And he's unfortunately trying to, to achieve this through continuation of war in Europe. Do they have leverage? Here in America, yes, of course. America is very powerful, and if Trump would make a decision to supply Ukraine with long-range weapons and give them permission to use these weapons in strikes against Russian major cities, starting with Moscow, yes, this will stop the war. By the way, probably in 24 hours. But for this, you have to give Ukrainians weapons, and not so far. The opposite is happening. So far, Starlink is stopped in the middle of military operation, and to prevent Ukraine from winning a particular battle. So that's what Trump is doing. That's what Trump is doing, and I do not think that this policy will be changed under Trump.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that a ceasefire in Ukraine is possible in the near future. As there is a high probability, many signs point to the possibility that the Russian-Ukrainian war will at least be suspended in the near future. He said, in your opinion, why are there so many statements about a ceasefire this year? What indicates this?
Well, we do know that Putin is not able to take Ukraine. I mean, he is not able to win this war. He is not able to force Ukraine to capitulate. And his last hope, Putin's last hope, was, of course, the elections of Trump in the United States, and the hope that Trump will force Ukraine to capitulate. And that's what we were actually, seeing during this first months of Trump presidency. But Ukraine refused to capitulate, and European countries refused to abandon Ukraine. Indeed, Europe basically indicated to the United States that if the United States are not going to participate in, organizing assistance to Ukraine, Europe will deal with this problem alone. And now, because of this, Trump has to change strategies slightly. He cannot, if you remember, first months he was saying that unless Ukraine agrees to this particular American peace plan, which was not American peace plan, we have to be clear. It was Putin's peace plan, which was introduced in June of 24, which included demobilization of Ukrainian army, resignation of Zelensky, new elections in Ukraine, refusal of abolition of Ukrainian plan to join NATO, etc. This was Putin's plan of June 24. And this was exactly the plan which was introduced by Trump as Trump's peaceful initiative, right? So this was not a plan to have peace in Ukraine. This was a plan to force Ukraine to capitulate, but Ukraine refused. The plan failed. Now, Trump was saying that if this is going to happen, the Americans would withdraw from the process, from the whatever involvement in Russian-Ukrainian war. And indeed, everybody said that's fine, Donald. If you want to withdraw, that's fine. We will deal with this ourselves. Just forget about the issue. But Trump cannot do this, right? Because then this would be an indication that he lost, and then this would be indications that he's not important at all. And in many ways he is important, but in many ways it's true he's not, and that's what this was indicated by Europe first of all, and by Zelensky by the way as well. So Trump is trying to be part of the game. He cannot just withdraw from Russian-Ukrainian issue, because this is a defeat for him. And this is a defeat for Putin. So Trump wants to be part of the game. That's why we have a lot of talking, 50 days, 10 days, 12 days. But the end of the story is that Ukraine will not get a single dollar and a single bullet under Trump's administration. This is not going to happen. And the reality is that it's going to be Europe which is going to help Ukraine, and which will help Ukraine simply because Europe has no choice, and Europe knows quite well, without any doubt, that the moment Putin is done with Ukraine, he will invade Eastern Europe. It's very possible, by the way, that he will invade Eastern Europe in any case, before even ending the Russian war in Ukraine, and the announcements about so-called military exercises, Russian-Belarusian military exercises in Belarus in September of this year, again, is something similar to the so-called exercises of 22 in Belarus, which ended with the invasion of Ukraine. So I do expect that if Russia will start to concentrate troops in Belarus again in September, as so far is announced, we will see a new invasion, either in the direction of Kiev again, or into Lithuania, probably Lithuania and Estonia, but somehow I think that only in Lithuania. So if this is a concentration of the troops, Russian troops in Belarus, the situation, I think, will become very, risky. And I think it's going to be very, very risky, first of all, for Ukrainians, because again, the possibility of a second attempt to take Kiev might be the reason for that concentration. And I would, if I would be part of the Ukrainian government, I would argue for preventive strike against Russian troops in Belarus to prevent the invasion.
In your opinion, why do they need to invade other countries?
Well, why they need to invade other countries is a philosophical probably issue. We know that, well, let's put it this way. The Soviet Union was a huge country. It has a lot of borders, and it's bordering many countries. The only country from which the Soviet Union did not take a piece of territory is Sweden. From all other countries, the Soviet Union managed to take at least some territories of those countries, right? And some countries were occupied completely. There was a state named Tuva. Not too many people know this, but this was an independent state which was just occupied by the Soviet Union in 1944, if I'm correct. So the Soviet Union had this tendency to take territories of other countries, and Putin continues actually to conduct the same policy. He invaded Georgia in 2008 and took under his control Abkhazia and South Ossetia. These were autonomous republics within Georgia. He invaded, of course, Ukraine in 2014 and took Crimea and tried to take Donbass in 2014. And then he invaded Ukraine again in 22. And he also occupied Belarus quietly and slowly, but he took Belarus under his complete control and managed to install their pro-Russian candidate Lukashenko, who actually came to power even before Putin when Yeltsin was president of Russia. But this was also a part of this traditional Russian, approach to take control of territories when the chance is presented. So this is a philosophical answer to your question, but the practical answer to your question is this: Putin is absolutely paranoid about Ukraine. I mean, he just wants to take it, and he's not able to do this. And indeed, if we count from 2014, this war for Donbass, for which now Putin, by the way, asked Trump for like 60 more days, was started in 2014. So for 12 years, Russia is trying to take control of Donbass and is not able to do this. I'm not speaking about the entire Ukraine, but Putin sincerely believes that the only reason he is not able to take Ukraine, or the only reason Ukraine is not capitulating, is because Ukraine is getting assistance. Prior to Trump administration, this was American assistance and European assistance. Now America is out, and we're talking only about European assistance to Ukraine. And Putin sincerely believes that probably the only way to stop this assistance, since Europe continues to help Ukraine, is to invade Europe. So Europeans would be concentrated on defending their own borders and will not have resources and finances to help Ukraine. And who knows? Maybe that's precisely what's going to happen, right? We just do not know. But this is the idea behind the invasion of Europe, that you need to invade Europe to finally to take Ukraine, or to occupy Ukraine. Ironically, it sounds slightly probably questionable, this kind of logic, but ironically, and that's what Stalin was thinking when he invaded the Soviet Union. Hitler was thinking when he invaded the Soviet Union in June of 1941, that in order to force Britain to capitulate, you need to invade the Soviet Union and destroy the Soviet army. Otherwise, Churchill would believe that that Russia would come to the assistance of Britain in fighting against Germans. So one of the ideas behind the invasion of the Soviet Union for Hitler was that otherwise people like Churchill in Britain would hope that the Soviet Union will help British Empire to fight Germans. What actually happened right at the end, not at the end, but after the invasion. So something similar. We will see, but again, we will see. September is very close. We will see if Russia will start to concentrate troops in Belarus. We know that Russia doesn't have enough troops, that it's using, North Koreans, right? For example, and it has shortage of troops. So when you have a war, you do not conduct military exercises. This never happens in history. So if we see this concentration of troops in September, this is for invasion. This is not for exercises.
The Kremlin has already reacted to Trump's new statements about the end of the war in Ukraine and US sanctions. And Dmitry Peskov said that Russia has acquired immunity from sanctions and is not afraid of restrictions. Is this really so? No fear at all?
Well, it's inconvenience, and of course, every time sanctions are imposed and Russia is trying to avoid them, this means, of course, that Russia is getting less money for oil and gas, but at the same time, there is market for these products, and for example, Europe knows quite well that illegal Russian tankers are transporting oil through the Baltic Sea. And technically speaking, it's very easy to stop those tankers from going. But Europeans are not in a hurry to do this because they do not know what's going to be the market reaction to this kind of intervention. Like, for example, if the oil price will go up, then this actually will help Russia and not damage Russia. So this kind of things are complicated. I'm not an economist, of course, but it's I'm sure it's very easy, practically speaking, to stop the illegal trade for Russian oil and gas proceeding or happening in the world, but the economic consequences of these moves are not clear, and that's why Europe is trying to do not make any rough decisions and rough movements directed against Russian Federation. So I do not believe that those sanctions will be introduced. That's number one, by Trump administration, and I do not believe that this might be a decisive move to change mind of Russian leadership, including Putin. Yes, it's true. Russia proved, all these years that they managed to exist under sanctions. And ruble is comparatively stable. It's, of course, an artificial currency in many ways, but nevertheless, ruble is stable. When you talk to Russians, especially Russians living in places like Moscow, they do not really feel the war economically. There are some difficulties with traveling. It's true, Aeroflot is not flying directly to European cities, so they need to travel through Georgia or through Turkey. But this is probably the only difficulty. Italy is still issuing Schengen visas to Russian citizens, avoiding a general understanding of European Union countries that they should not issue new visas to Russians. So Russians are very creative in avoiding laws. This relates to laws in Russia. This was always the case, and to international laws as well.
How do you think these events like sanctions, international isolation affect Russian elites? Do they also have so-called immunity?
Well, first of all, there are no elites in Russia. This is a wrong view on those people who are living there. Those who are part of the Russian elite. All these people I brought, they left Russia. You have a lot of rich people in Russia. This is true. And they live in Russia because they care about their business and they find under any condition, again, Russian business people are very creative. Under any conditions, they find the way to survive and to make profit. And again, when you talk to Russians, to Russian business people, a lot of them are saying that they actually earn much more money now during the wartime than before the war. But again, there are no oligarchs in Russia anymore. There were oligarchs in Yeltsin's time, right? But these were people who were rich, of course, but they also were, planning or thinking or trying to be involved in politics, to be something in addition to just being rich. And now this is not the case. You're allowed to be rich as long as you play according to Putin's rule, according to Russian government rule in general, but you're not a part of elite. Because elite are people who feel responsibility for their nation, for their country, and those people who are in Russia, they care about themselves and their families, of course, and their well-being. This is true, but this is not an elite. They live comfortably in Russia or in places like Dubai, or if they manage to avoid sanctions, they live in Europe. But they do not play any role, any political role at all.
So we talked about the fact that the only influence on Russia now is long-range missiles that Ukraine can use to hit major Russian cities. But in your opinion, is there diplomatic pressure on Russia that would stop the war?
No, I think the diplomacy unfortunately lost this battle a long time ago. Again, Macron tried it for some time. German leadership was trying this. Biden was trying this, and they failed. They failed because in Russia we have a very unusual system when the state is run by state security, by what we knew like KGB during the Soviet years, what is now the FSB. But this is the state security as the institution. And this institution took control of the state in 2000, abolished actually any all political parties who stopped to be independent and who stopped fighting for power in Russia. They do not compete, those political parties, they formally exist, they represented in the Russian parliament, but they do not compete for power with the FSB. And the FSB is ruling the country for 25 years now. And instead of budget, which usually the state security in any country would get from the government, they have for their, as the budget, the entire economy of the Russian Federation. They are in control. Unfortunately, they are in control. And so these people are not interested in peace. These people are not interested in diplomacy. They have this idea, which is, it sounds too extreme, it sounds too radical, it might be even naive, but we had this problem before with the Soviet government when Bolshevik took power in Russia in 1917, and they had this idea of world revolution, which partially failed, but just partially, because by 1945 Stalin was controlling half of Europe. And of course, the Soviet Union then organized revolutions in some other parts of the world as well, including places like Cuba, right near the United States. So Putin also has this idea that Russia should return the control which the Soviet Union, the level of control in Europe which the Soviet Union had under Stalin or after Stalin. And that's why we're having this war. So the first stage of this war for Putin was to return European territories which the Soviet Union had, like Belarus, Ukraine, the Baltic states, and then the return of the influence which the Soviet Union had, which is the former Eastern Europe. He is very far from realization of his plans, as we know, because these plans actually kind of backfired in Ukraine. But unfortunately, the goals of the Russian government, the policy of the Russian government, politics of the Russian government didn't change since 2014, since 2022, and Russia lost approximately around 1 million people by now, and this is the bloodiest war in Russian history since the Second World War. But we do not see any changes, and I do not really expect any changes unless something happens to Putin. It's not because he's a dictator. I do not consider him as a dictator. I consider him the representative of the FSB in power, right, holding the post of president of Russian Federation. But nevertheless, when leaders in the Soviet Union rule for a long time, like Stalin or like Brezhnev, usually when they're gone, changes are happening, and usually those changes for better, not for worse. So I expect that if for one or another reason Putin is gone, changes will take place in Russia, and they will be for better. But we should not expect that Putin will die tomorrow, or that somebody might kill him, or of course that he will resign. So I do not think this is our nearest future. I mean, eventually this will happen, but unfortunately, in contemporary world, medicine is great, and unfortunately, those leaders they have a tendency to live a very long time.
Yeah, so there is only one way to continue the fight against aggressor country. I hope European countries understand this. Dr. Felshtinsky, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you for your time.
So to all our viewers, if this conversation was useful for you, like and share, and see you.